Hello, this is Dual Personality bringing you a set of Metal Raiders, the entire 2002 set. We'll be looking at three different criteria as we look at these cards. Firstly, being classic, which is essentially how these cards were in context when they were released, and also within classic formats, stretching from Legend of the Blue Eyes White Dragon to Flame in Eternity, the original sets, quote unquote, as well as limited formats, which would which would be these cards in a draft, essentially just a draft using only this pool of cards, or potentially constructed decks using only Metal Raiders cards. Nobody likes doing that, but it's kind of fun actually. And lastly, of course, modern formats, just gameplay here in 2016. Most of these cards aren't too good in modern, but there's a few gems here and there. I'm looking at you. Not really. He's not actually good. But we'll get to that. There's 143 cards in this set, so let's jump right in. First off, we have Gate Guardian. I'll zoom in on some of these. Some of these I can just read off what they are without trying to zoom in. Level 11, Dark Warrior, 3750 attack, 3400 defense. What a card to start with. He can only be special summoned by offering the Gate Guardian pieces as a tribute on your side of the field, which would be Song of the Thunder, Kazjin, and Suijin. Gate Guardian is definitely a classic card. It was really hard to get a hold of. These went for like $70 a pop back in the day, even more sometimes. And the funny part about it is nobody ever used this card, even back when it was released. It was impossible to summon. It's still impossible to summon. There are some chump pendulum decks that go around that try to bring the pieces out that's tribute for this. But the funny part about this card is like the sum of these parts is more than the whole. Like if you have these three monsters, like the three Gate Guardian pieces are solid monsters on their own for their time. And they actually have more, like cumulatively, they have more stats together than when they're as Gate Guardian. So actually, if you have the three, you're better off just keeping them on the board and just hitting your opponent's face with them, like instead of making this. This card is really just a gimmick. And it's a cool gimmick. It's a gimmick I love, but it's a terrible card, unfortunately. You can't even build a deck around this that would actually work. It's never been a good card, unfortunately, but it's a cool card. Yeah, that goes for all three formats I mentioned, not playable in any of them. Feral Imp, Dark Fiend, 1300, 1400 vanilla. Average attack in this set is about 1500, so anything under that bar is usually pretty just on the weak side. Feral Imp is no exception. Dark Fiend is good typing. There's a lot of Dark synergy, a lot of Fiend synergy in the coming sets, but for the time being of Metal Raiders, it's pretty bad. Not the worst card in the set. It's better than, say, this guy, but not particularly good. Wind Dragon, Guardian of the Fortress #1. Wind Dragon, 1400, 1200. Dragon Synergy was slightly better, but there were also anti-dragon cards out there at the time of this card, so it's, I would say, better than Feral Imp, but still not good because, again, it's under the 1500 mark, so it loses a lot of usability. So, still quite unplayable, but not the worst card. Actually come to Summon Skull, actually a pretty legit card in context back in the day. Level 6, 2500, 1200, Dark Vanilla Fiend. One Tribute 2500 was one of the, pretty much the best you could get for the cost. Most one Tribute monsters would have between 1800 to like 2200 attack, usually. Summon Skull was the best you could get for one tribute. It didn't do anything effect-wise, but it could run over almost anything that wasn't a true tribute monster, and that was good enough in itself. This card actually was played quite a lot. I believe it was printed in the Yugioh deck. I should remember this, but I don't remember offhand. I'm pretty sure it was. I don't remember this card being hard to get. But yeah, as far as back then goes, it was playable. Beyond playable, really. Now, there is really no reason to play this card. Like most normal monsters, it's just completely pointless. Definitely a classic though. Rock Ogre Grotto #1, Earth Rock level 3, 800, 1200. These stats are bad. I think this is the fusion material for something, but I don't remember for sure. They might be in the set. Point is, card is bad. 1200 is too low for this set. Most stuff will run over it. Cute face though. Armored Lizard. Earth Reptile Vanilla, 1500 1200. 1500 1200 is a really common stat line in this game up until the end of Flaming Eternity. And it's actually a playable card in this set. It's alright. As I said, 1500 is the baseline for being a decent monster, stat wise. And yeah, this card, it's serviceable. Not gonna change the game though. Killer Needle, Wind Insect, 1200 1000, level 4. Insect Synergy would come out a lot in the coming sets, but in Classic, this card's not really good, except with like a field spell, but if it needs a field spell, it's not a good card. 1200 will run over a few things, but not most things. Yeah, just bad card. And now we come to possibly the worst card in the game. I'm not making this up. This is the first review video I've ever done, and I think I've already found the worst card in the game. I already opened it because I knew I was going to talk about this. Larva Moth. Earth Insect, level 2, 500 400. Effect can only be special summoned by offering Petite Moth as a tribute on the second turn after Petite Moth has been equipped by Cocoon of Evolution. Now, most people will know the Cocoon of Evolution thing, and we'll be getting those cards are in this set, so we'll get to them. But basically, the way it goes is you have Petite Moth, which is a 300 1200 insect. You put Cocoon of Evolution on it, and it just sits there for a few turns. You put counters on it, track time. After 4 turns, you get Great Moth, I think, which is a pretty big monster. It's supposed to it's like a vanilla. It's like a flavor thing. The moth is in the larva is in the cocoon. It grows, etc. And the idea is, instead of waiting 4 turns for Great Moth, which is a 2600 meter, you can wait for Larva Moth, which has 500 attack. This card it's legitimately the worst card in the game, I think. You can't normal summon it because you can only special summon it. And the only way you can special summon it is with 2 different cards. And it's strictly worse than most monsters in this set. It has lower stats than Mask of Darkness. Let that sink in. A card you play specifically to just die. It's worse than that. Yeah, this is the worst card in the game, I think. You don't even play this in like a gimmick like the Great Moth thing is already not good. Nobody does that. So this card is just significantly worse than that. Yeah, I can't. There's nothing redeeming about this card. It's not even a cute picture. It's just a worm on a tree. There's nothing I like about this. Just get it out of my face. Okay, Harpy Lady, the uncensored version. Level 4, Winged Beast, 1300 1400. Not particularly good as a card, but this still saw play because of the next card we're going into, Harpy Lady Sisters. Level 6, Winged Beast, 1950 2100, can only be special summoned with the magic card Elegant Egotist. May as well go to Elegant Egotist right now, which is pretty basic. When there are 1 or more Harpy Lady cards on the field, you can special summon 1 Harpy Lady or Harpy Lady Sisters card from your hand or your deck. This was one of the only archetypes to exist at this point in the game. The little Harpy Lady block, there's only I think 1 other card. Actually, I think these are the only 3 cards, but point is, people would make a deck with these. You would run 3 of each card, and sometimes you cheese your opponent out because you'll have the Harpy Lady, you'll get the Harpy Lady Sisters first turn, and these stats aren't good now, but they were good back then. Like this was a big card back then. It was hard to get over, and if they got the field dominance early, you would just lose because this card's big and hard to get rid of. And you'd run 3 of them, and you can summon it for free with Elegant Egotist. It worked pretty well. It phased out pretty hard, but it was actually it's actually the first archetype ever to happen in the game, as far as like named synergies. But yeah, legitimate card back then. In Classic, it's actually playable, I would say. As far as Modern goes, Harpies has like an entire archetype with all these new cards, still aren't good. So yeah, it stands to reason this isn't good either. This isn't even played in Modern Harpies, so there's also that. Alright, going back up. Kojikosi, 1500 1200 Earth Vanilla Warrior. Exact same as Armored Lizard. Literally the same card, just a new art and a new name and a different type. Warrior is better than Reptile, though. Warrior is one of the best types in the game. Actually, there's so many synergy cards for Warrior. So this card has that going for it. Otherwise, as far as Classic goes, it's alright in a Warrior deck. As we move further into Classic sets, it's going to be power creeped, but it's alright. For limited draft, it's a top pick. Yeah, that's Kojo Kozi. There's not much to talk about. A Cocoon of Evolution. Now we'll actually get into this card proper. I believe, yeah, there's Petite Moth. Level 1, Insect, 300. Is that 350? It doesn't matter. There's no difference. But, yeah, oh no, it's 300, 200. Yeah, it's only used with this card. This card's very poorly worded. Let's go over it. You may treat this card as an equipped magic card on a face-up Petite Moth on the field. When equipped, the attack and defense of Petite Moth becomes the same as Cocoon of Evolution. Now, there's a problem with this card, and I don't know if anyone notices this, but Petite Moth, this has to be on a face-up Petite Moth. So you play the Petite Moth, fine. You put Cocoon of Evolution on, fine. You now have a face-up attack position 0 attack monster, because Cocoon of Evolution doesn't allow you to change the battle position. There's no way to... you can't even set Petite Moth and flip it face up. You can't flip it into defense position. There's no way to make this actually work. You have to play an external card that changes the position of your Petite Moth. It's absolutely awful. Assuming none of these issues were in place, we can go over to Great Moth and see the big thing you're doing all this for. Great Moth, I believe it's 4 turns after equipping. Yep, 4 turns. You get a 26-25 level 8 Earth Insect. It's powerful. It's bigger than Summon the Skull. However, it's not really worth it because, again, this card doesn't work as intended because it's not a 2000 beater. It's like it's not a 2000 blocker. It's a 0 attack blocker that you have to hope doesn't die immediately. Like Great Moth decks have never worked. This has never been a thing. Even the bigger version, the 3500, never was used because it's just too slow. Even in a format where slow cards kind of work, this card doesn't work. Yeah, it's cool, very flavorful, but it's never. I gotta close that one. It never worked. You can try it, but it's not going to work. Crawling Dragon, Earth, level 5 Dragon, 1500, 1400? No, 1600, 1400. 16 is significantly larger than 15. In as far as Metal Raiders goes, that's the divide between 4 and 5 stars. That being said, though, as far as like 1 chibi monsters in Metal Raiders and Classic in general, this is actually one of the weakest because 1600 isn't just a significant enough power boost and attack. Dragon's a good typing, but this card is still not good, unfortunately. Armored Zombie, level 3 Dark Zombie, 1500 0. This is part of the block of zombies where they'd have 0 attack, no defense. That was like the balancing thing. 1500 attack is serviceable. Otherwise, there wasn't that much zombie synergy back then. There was like the 1 equip card in Legend. So not significant, just it's a decent attack monster. That's all there is to it. Mask of Darkness. Now we're getting into the first effect monster. Actually, no, there's been like the one before, but Mask of Darkness, Dark level 2 Fiend, 900, 400 flip effect. It's like 1 trap card from your graveyard and return it to your hand. So what were some targets for this? Let's look at a few. Not Fake Trap. I know there's more in this set. You could get Solemn back. You could get Jammer back, I guess. You could get Horn of Heaven, 7 tools. Mirror Force is the most significant one. Nobody cares about Robin Goblin. It's really mainly Mirror Force. You get to use Mirror Force again. That was significant. People would do that if you had them, because Mirror Forces were hard to get back then. Yeah, Mask of Darkness throughout Classic format really is actually a pretty threatening card because there's so many potentially good traps, like Magic Cylinder, for instance, that once you return them back, they become pretty good. This card does have one weakness though, and it's more of a psychological weakness, mainly that if you get a trap that depends on an opponent action to activate, and then you set it, it's less of a trap. It's more of a thing that stalls your opponent out because they won't want to do the thing that triggers that trap. Mainly with Magic Cylinder, they're not going to attack you until they can clear it. So this has that going against it. However, it's still a good card. Again, there's so many good traps you can potentially cycle with this. It has that going for it, and therefore it is a playable card. Flip effects are all pretty much universally too slow for Modern, unfortunately. Dome at the Angel's Silence. I don't remember her stats. I think it's 16. Yep, 1600, 1400, level 5, Dark Fairy. Same thing as Crawling Dragon. Stats are too weak even for a 5-star monster. There are better 5-star monsters in this set. Or Summon the Skull, for that matter. White Magical Hat. Level 3, Light Spellcaster. 1000 attack, 700 defense. When this card inflicts damage to your opponent's life points, one card must be discarded randomly from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. That is mandatory, fun fact. Interesting card. The game was so slow back then that discarding one card was kind of actually relevant. One very important thing to remember about the format back then, there were very few graveyard return cards. So discarding a card wasn't like it is today, where you might trigger an effect or you'll put a card in the graveyard they'll just use later. Usually if a card went to the graveyard back then, it was gone forever. As the game went on, more and more cards could get stuff back, Called On being the most notable. But really, yeah, this card would just basically it's pretty much like you banished a card from their hand, more or less. That being said, this card still wasn't very good. Its stats are too low. It's not going to inflict much damage when it's dead. That's kind of the main thing. You could play this with a bunch of removal cards, and then destroy their monsters. Then on an open field, you play this. You hit them for 1,000, which was more significant back then. That's a fourth of your life points. And then they get rid of a card forever. Significant effect, but not very good. You need cards to support it. It's not strong enough on its own to ever inflict much damage. One notable thing that I haven't mentioned yet, at the time of this set, you only had 4,000 life points. 8,000 was added later. I can't remember exactly when they changed it. I think it was GX. But yeah, and Classic format is played with 4,000 usually. So this did more significant damage on an open field, but again, still a weak card. Not awful though. Big Eye, not number 7. Dark, level 4 Fiend. 1200, 1000. Flip. See the top 5 cards of your deck. Arrange them in any order desired and replace them on top of your deck. This effect was never that good. What's notable about it is the Classic format is slow enough that this can sometimes work out. If you use an effect that searches, you're just going to shuffle the deck and then basically lose this effect. In a Classic Fiend deck, this is kind of usable, but there are lots of better Fiends stat-wise, and the effect on this isn't amazing. Changing the order of your cards is kind of like an indirect version of Card Advantage, where you get the cards you need more first. In Limited, this is actually pretty draftable, because Limited is so slow that changing the order in which you draw stuff is significant. Average card in Limited, below average in Classic, completely unplayable in Modern. Beast Skull Dragon, Black Skull Dragon, level I think 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9. I can't count. Dark Dragon Fusion, 3200, 2500 fusion of Summon Skull and Red Eyes Black Dragon. Notable thing on limited drafts, you can draft Poly and any fusion materials not in the set used for a fusion monster in the set, so you're not locked out of cards like this. As far as Black Skull Dragon goes, it wasn't really used that much. It was the biggest not the biggest monster in the game. It was second to Gate Guardian, but Gate Guardian basically didn't exist, more because just of how useless it was to summon. So this pretty much got over everything. Got over Blue Eyes. Kind of almost a game-winning card unless they remove it. Fusions were more commitment back then because there were no ways to cheat them out. There were no fusion substitutes till I think the first tournament pack. So you had to have these three. You had to have Poly, Summon Skull, and then Red Eyes Black Dragon. You had to have those three cards. Summon Skull was a legit card to play. Red Eyes Black Dragon was one of the weakest two tribute monsters because it just got outclassed by Dark Magician. So and Blue Eyes for that matter. So wasn't very good. People still played it for the flavor though. And you could, I guess, play a Black Skull Dragon deck. Not the best thing, but definitely not the worst. Card's all right. In a limited draft, again, slow enough. You could very well pull this off if you hold the cards. But you're not going to want to because you want to play Summon Skull, but it's doable. Masked Sorcerer, the counterpart to White Magical Hat. Dark, level 4, spellcaster, 900, 1400. When you inflict damage to your opponent's life points with this card, draw one card from your deck. I would say this card is better than White Magical Hat because drawing a card is better than discarding a card from your opponent's hand because they might not have a card in their hand, but drawing cards is always a good effect. This is less likely to inflict damage though because 900 attack. You can set this card in the same way you would with White Magical Hat, where you have cards that destroy other cards first, or just large monsters in general. Like if you have board advantage already, you can play this in addition and then kind of get an extra boost. It'll be a high priority target to kill because it creates a lot of card advantage. And if they have a really weak monster, you can set it and hope they run into it, and then it deals damage. That being said, it's still a weak card. The attack is so low that either you have to. It's not good on its own. You have to either equip it or use it with other cards to support it. Still a serviceable card though. Again, classic and limited formats are so slow that this effects like this can snowball. Useless in modern though. Roaring Ocean Snake. Water, level 6, Aqua, 2100, 1800. It's a fusion of Mystic Lamp and Hyosube. I think that's how you pronounce that. I don't know why Mystic Lamp is involved. I don't see the Mystic Lamp in this. Now, some people might think, well, why not just play Red Eyes if you want to play a fusion monster? But the thing is, Red Eyes has chi monsters you can't summon normally. This has chi you can. Hyosube, I think, is nearby on this. That's Mystic Lamp. It's just a direct attacker with no stats. And Hyosube, he's a 1500, just normal monster. So with Roaring Ocean Snake, it has two monsters you can use as just regular monsters. Then you do a poly, and you have the option of just fusing them basically. Serviceable fusion card, not great. It's stronger. It's actually stronger than some other fusion cards in the game at this point. Definitely playable in limited. As far as classic goes, it's too weak. There are way better, even in a classic format where there's a limited gamut of fusion cards. This is still worse than a lot of them. Not the worst, though. There are worse ones. Water Omotics, the censored version. Water, level 4, Aqua, 1400, 1200. Strictly weaker than a lot of other cards. There is more water support in Classic on average, though, so I guess it has that going for it. There are better vanilla water monsters, though, so this is pretty much not really good. Almost serviceable and limited, because 1400 is almost as good as 1500, but it gets run over by a lot of stuff, so it's a pretty low tier pick. Ground Attacker Bugroth. I think Bugroth. Earth, Machine, level 4, 1500, 1000. Machine is one of the best types in Classic, if not the best, because you have Limiter Removal, you have 7 completed, you have Perfectly Ultimate Machine Gun. There's a lot of great machine cards. And this is a pretty good, just decent card in general for limited. I mean, again, 1500 is the baseline. Just in Classic in general, you can play a 1500 attack monster turn 1 and not feel bad about yourself. But yeah, being a machine boosts this card. You can play it in a machine deck. There are better machine cards, but you can use it. Yeah, it's serviceable, pun intended, because it's a machine. We already went over this. Okay, let's go over these kind of simultaneously. Same card for the most part. Sangha is a light thunder. Kazujin is a wind spellcaster. Suijin is a water aqua. They're all level 7. Sangha has 26, 22. Kazujin 24, 22. Suijin 25, 24. They all have the same effect. Reduces the attack of an opponent's monster attacking this card to 0. This effect can be used only once. This card's owner chooses when to activate this effect. I love how awkward the old cards are worded. So as something that's trying to attack this, you can make its attack 0. That's code for nobody will ever attack these because they don't want that to happen to their monster. All of these stat lines are decent. Kazujin is the weakest, of course. But Sangha and Suijin are pretty decent. These are the Gate Guardian pieces. They're all better than Gate Guardian because you can actually use them. They're all playable in drafts. The effect is strong. Even Kazujin, who has the weakest stats, doesn't have to worry that much about getting run over by something larger because you just reduce it to 0. Like, nobody's ever going to attack these. So they have that going for them. And yeah, they're all good and limited. As far as Classic goes, they're still not that... They're actually moderately playable in Classic. I don't know if you'd ever want to play these in Classic. I mean, a 2-chibi monster isn't the worst. Like, it's still not good in Classic because there's stuff like Bottomless everywhere. So, these cards are meh. In Classic. Limited, they're great. Top tier picks. And of course, in Modern, not playable. Mystic Lamp. This is the first in a line of monsters in this set. Level 1. And they can attack directly, which means they can ignore your opponent's monsters and just go for face. Mystic Lamp in particular is a dark spellcaster with 400 attack, 300 defense. Cards like this weren't used that much. They're just so weak they get run over immediately. The main synergies with Swords of Revealing Light, you would play that and you start poking their face. This was the first burn deck. It was never good. It was too slow, even by burn standards, and even for back then. You just never did this. And you use that to fuse Roaring Ocean Snake, so I guess there's that. Steel Scorpion. Earth, level 1, 250, 300 machine. A non-machine type monster attacking Steel Scorpion will be destroyed at the end phase of your opponent's second turn after the attack. Oh my god, this is pretty bad. Even back then, it's just so slow. I mean, Classic might be slow enough that this works, but usually not. I mean, it might destroy their blue eyes sometimes. Like, it's just so slow and doesn't do enough. It doesn't have enough of an effect on the board. Ocubeam. Level 5, Light Fairy. 1550, 1650. 1550's almost relevant because it runs over 1500 attack monsters, which there are scores of. This is a fusion material card, so I'm going to keep it open. You really wouldn't want to tribute a monster for this. I was saying earlier that like the 1600 level 5s were weak, but this is actually weaker than them. I mean, you can set it, you can tribute, then set it, and then they'll run into it and take 50 damage. But like, it's not really good. There's no way to make this work. The Ghoul, I'm not going to open it. It's the same as Mystic Lamp, just has 100 less attack, and it's an Earth Insect. Being Insect is slightly less more relevant because there's a lot of insect support in Classic, but otherwise, mundane card. Uguchi, same thing. It's Water Aqua, has 300. Water is one of the most supported attributes, so it has that going for it. Leogan, Earth, level 5, Beast, 1750, I think 1350. Doesn't matter that much, but I want to show it off. 1550. Serviceable level 5 monster. There are bigger ones. There's Summon Skull, which is the same number of tributes, but it has like 650, like 750 on this. But yeah, it can control the board if they don't have an answer to it. 1750 is in the range where an equip card on a 1500 will kill it, but it's not the worst thing ever. Blast Juggler. Weird card. Level 3 Fire Machine, 800, 900. Effect. Offer this card as a tribute during your standby phase if face up to destroy 2 face-up monsters with an attack of 1,000 or less. This is the worst good effect ever. Because tributing a monster to destroy 2 things is good. Tributing a monster during your standby phase while it's face up, to destroy 2 monsters with an attack of 1,000 or less is not good. The fact you have to tribute it during your standby phase means it has to survive a turn, and it can only kill lanes within 200 attack of it that you can probably just run over anyway. Bad card. I'm sorry, Blast Juggler, you're not good. There's no scenario in which this is good, except if they have like they have like 2 Spirit Reapers, and you want to attack directly with your white magical hat or something like that. But that never happens. Card's bad. I don't need to open that. It's a direct attacker. Probably the best one because it's a machine, so you can buff it really easily with stuff like 7 completed or limited removal. It's actually almost relevant to that reason. Fun fact: Jinzo number 7 came before Jinzo. The more you know. Magician of Faith, rare light spellcaster, flip, return one's I'll read it off the card. Select 1 magic card from your graveyard and return it to your hand. There were way more targets for this than for Mask of Darkness. You had Bageki, Dark Hole. What else was in this set? I don't want to open Legend. Tribute of the Doom was played. Change of Heart was a great target, probably the best. Tremendous Fire. If you want to burn them out and be that guy. Heavy Storm. Yeah, those are the main cards. This was good for that reason. The card remained good for years. It was banned for years because there were so many great cards it got back. Classic is slow enough to play this. It's good in limited draft as long as you draft spells. If you don't draft spells, it's useless. It was worthy of its ban for a long time. It's too slow for Modern. It's at 3 now, I think. So, I mean, I don't even know offhand. That tells you how insignificant this card is in Modern. Ancient Elf, 1450, 1200, level 4, light spellcaster. Too weak to be relevant. Spellcaster is a decent type, but that's it. Deep Sea Shark, Water Fish, Bottom Dweller plus Tongyo. I think Tongyo's a tournament pack. Oh no, it's right there. 1900, 1600. It's alright. The fact that both of its monsters are water is kind of cool. There's that. And they're both fish too. I think they're all fish. So I mean, if you have some sort of fish thing going, I guess it works in Classic. But it's pretty weak even for Classic. In Limited, it's alright. It's weaker than Roaring Ocean Snake. So it has that going against it. Modern, of course, it's an instant fusion target. That's all it has going for it, though. Let's see. Bottom Dweller, one of the materials for Deep Sea Shark. Water level 5 fish, 1650, 1700. Semi-serviceable stats, dies to a lot, but kills a lot as well. It's alright in Limited. You don't play this in Classic or Modern. Destroyer Golem, it's a Earth level 4 rock, 1500 to 1000. Rock is one of the most undersupported archetypes in Classic, so you don't use it. As far as Limited goes, 1500 is the baseline for playing stuff, so it has that. Useless in Modern. Kaminari Attack. Level 5 Wind Thunder Fusion monster with 1900 attack and 1400 defense. It's a fusion of Aki Beam, which we went over, and Mega Thunderball, which is just a 750 level 2 vanilla. It's not really good. Weaker than Roaring Ocean Snake. The cards that you fuse to make it don't even have synergy of any sort. They just kind of sit there. Thunderball and this are both thunder monsters. I guess you can run it in Yumi, but why? It is an instant fusion target though, so it does have that going for it. It's a very neat looking instant fusion target. Rainbow Flower, direct attacker, 400, 300, I think 500, doesn't matter. Same thing as all the other direct attackers, not too slow to be useful. Morinfin, I think that is. Morinfin. Level 5, Dark Fiend, 1550 and 1300. Possibly the weakest level 5 in the set. Underwhelming card, even in Limited. Mega Thunderball, we kind of talked about already. 750, 400, Wind Thunder. You fuse 600. Fuse it with for Kaminari Attack. Still not good though. Tongyo is a level 4 water fish, 1350 attack, 800 defense. It's you can fuse it for for deep sea shark, and I guess you could do it in a water deck. It kind of works for that reason. 1350 is weak though, unfortunately. Empress Judge, another fusion monster. Come on, let's load. It's not wanting to load. Oh, what a disaster. Oh, there we go. Level 6, Earth Warrior Fusion, 2100 plus 1700. Queen's Double plus Hibikime. Look at those two cards. Queen's Double, just a direct attacker. Hibikime is a 1400 vanilla monster. Both cards that you make to you fuse into it are serviceable. I think they're all warriors, so they have that going for them. This is actually the most, on paper, pun intended, good card as far as fusions go in this set. Certainly playable in limited. You still don't use it in classic, unfortunately. But it's moderately useful as far as those go. Pale Beast, Earth, level 4 Beast, 1500, 1200. Most common stat line in the game, I think. It's alright. Serviceable and limited. You don't use it in classic. Electric Lizard, Earth, level 3 Thunder, 850, 800. A non-zombie type attack monster attacking Electric Lizard cannot attack on its following turn. Not significant enough of an effect. Just play swords revealing light. There's no board advantage to be gained from stunning a monster. Not really useful enough. Hunter Spider, level 5 Earth, 1600, 1400 insect. 1600 on a level 5 isn't particularly good. I do want to point out that insects have a lot of synergy in Classic though, so I guess you could use it, but there are still way better insects out there. Yeah, this is competing against stuff like Giant Flea and like Neobug or Insect Soldier. Like, it's just not strong enough in Classic. In Limited, it's alright. Of course, Modern, unplayable. When I talk about a card, assume it's unplayable in Modern unless I say so. Or if it's like notable for a notable reason. Ancient Lizard Warrior, Earth level 4, Reptile, 1400, 1100. Reptile is pretty undersupported in Classic. Stats are underwhelming. Nothing going for it, unfortunately. Queen's Double, it's a 350, 300 Warrior, level 1. Fuse it into Empress Judge. It's alright for that synergy. Again, direct attackers aren't really good though. Trent, the classic old Trent. Level 5, Earth Plant, 1500 to 1800. The 1800 decent and limited because a lot of stuff can't get over that except for Summon Skull. 1500 is weak though. It's just a level 5 blocker, but problem is like tripping 1 to set a blocker is really a terrible play because they'll never attack into it because they're going to assume it's big. It's really obvious and limited too because I think this is like the only level 5 blocker in the set, so they'll always know it's Trent. It's serviceable though. I have a weak spot for Trent. This Magician, a level 4 Dark Vanilla Machine, 1350, 1000. I think 1000, doesn't really matter. Like all machines, it's decent because it's a machine. This one's pretty weak as far as machines go though. Haosube, Water Aqua, level 4, 1500, 800, 900, 800, same thing. Water is well supported. You fuse this into, I don't remember what you fuse this into. This thing. You can use a Roaring Ocean Snake deck, I guess, in limited. It works for that. Otherwise, a weak card. Hibikime, kind of talked about it already. It's a serviceable basic monster. You fuse it into Empress Judge. It's good for that reason. Fake Trap. Oh my goodness. What a ruling nightmare. When your opponent uses the magic trap or effect monster card to destroy your trap cards, this card can be destroyed as a substitute for your trap cards. I'm not sure how this card is used. I'm not sure if you can use it against MST. I'm not sure if it only works on stuff that specifically destroys trap cards. Either way, it's terrible. This was the card you would pull as a kid as a rare, and you hated everything because it's the worst rare. It's probably the worst rare in the game, actually. This card's bad. It's really bad. I think it said something else in OCG, but point is, yeah, you don't use this card ever. This is a card you will literally never see in Limited or Classic or anywhere. It's not good in Modern either. There will never be a time where fake traps are like worth a bunch of money because there's like some card that like destroys all traps in your deck and you just have like fake trap, and it doesn't work that way. It'll never work that way. Tribute to the Doomed. Discard a card from your hand to the graveyard to destroy one monster card on the field regardless of its position. This was one of the first spot removal cards. It's -2 to destroy a monster with no restrictions except you have to discard a card to use it. It's a 2 for 1. It's a 1 for 2. I don't know what order that ratio should be set in. You use 2 cards to kill 1 card, but it can kill anything, so it's actually playable in Limited, definitely. Classic, there's a lot of better cards, but you could potentially still use this because it has no restrictions whatsoever. Like, people will say Smashing Ground is better, and I agree for the most part, and even Offerings to the Doomed, but it is completely playable even in Classic. There are always there's reasons to play this over other cards within the Classic format for spot removal. Definitely a good card though, as far as Classic goes. Modern, way too slow. And using 2 cards to kill 1 is just too bad anymore. Soul Release, Magic card. Select up to 5 cards from either you or your opponent's graveyard and remove them from the current duel. That's a old way of saying remove from play or banish. Not really good. There were some matchups where this works. It's kind of a decent side deck card in Classic. Limited, there's like no cards in the set that revive anything, so there's no point in using it for that reason. As far as Classic goes, this works against, I guess, Monster Reborn and Call of the Haunted. Other than that, though, it was never really a played card. It's strictly better than Gravedigger Ghoul, and that's about it. The Cheerful Coffin. You can discard up to 3 current monster cards from your hand to the graveyard. This card was this card was strictly bad in the set, I think. You can only use this to like dump a large monster and then Monster Reborn it. That was all you could do with it. This was played for Dark Worlds. It worked in Dark Worlds for like a mass activation. Dark Worlds don't come out at this point for about, I don't know, 4 years, so not really used. Not playable as far as Limited goes. This card's strictly bad in Limited because there's no revival in the set. It's still not as bad as Larvamoth, though. Change of Heart. Oh, what a card. This card's banned for a reason. Select one and control one opposing monster regardless of position on the field until the end of your turn. This card is insane. This card is really insane. The amount of power switch to be had from stealing a monster is mind-blowing. You steal a monster, you attack with it, you tribute with it. Your opponent loses a monster, you gain a monster. It's incredibly powerful. This card has won so many games. Has one of the best arts in the game, I think. Amazing card. Possibly the best in this set. And this is the same set that has Mirror Force, so I still think this is probably the best card in this set, unless I'm forgetting something, which I don't think I am. Yeah, none of these are better. There's Mirror Force, Heavy Storm. Heavy Storm's not even as good as this. Heavy Storm's fair. It destroys all cards. It destroys all spells and traps. Yeah, this is the best card in the set. One of the best cards in Classic, even. Classic still uses some man lists, so you still can only play one of these for damn good reason. Limited, best card you can draft by far. Amazing card. How far are we? Not even halfway. Oh no, we're almost halfway. Baby Dragon, level 3 Wind Dragon, 1200, 700. This is used to make Thousand Dragon. I'm not gonna scroll down. Most people know Thousand Dragon by now. Actually, almost one of the best fusion monsters in this set. Baby Dragon's it's not good, but you fuse it into something and then it becomes like serviceable. So it's good for fusion fodder, but that's it. Blackland Fire Dragon, Dark, level 4 Dragon, 1500, 800. It's alright. It's an alright body, and it's a dragon, which is an advantage in this game because a Flute of Summoning Dragon with Lord of D. You can summon it with that, and then you can't target it with anything because of Lord of D. Pretty good for that reason. It's just an alright dragon target, basically. Swamp Battle Guard. Let's do that tab again. Here we go. Earth, level 5, Warrior, 1800, 1500. Increase the attack of this monster by 500 points for every face-up Lava Battle Guard on your side of the field. The problem with this little mini synergy, and Lava Battle Guard, by the way, let's just look at it right now while we're talking about this one. Of course, it has to be far down. There it is. It's the same thing, but 1550 attack. So it's like these stats are kind of reversed. And then this one increases for every Swamp Battle Guard. The reason the synergy never really worked is because they're level 5. So there's like no good way to stack a bunch of them on the field. Swamp Battle Guard, though, has 1800, which is a decent stat line. Runs over a lot of things. So yeah, this card is actually alright in Limited. The Battle Guards are not a thing in Classic, though, and certainly not in Modern. They got a new card. They had a support card, the the Feast card in the first Arc 5 set, but it's just not good. Arc V, rather, I'm sorry. Battle Steer, Earth, level 5, Beast Warrior, 1800, 1300, I think. Same thing as Swamp Battle Guard, decent stat line for level 5, runs over a lot of things. It's playable in Limited, not in Classic, though. Time Wizard, oh my goodness. Light, level 2 Spellcaster, 500, 400, effect. Toss a coin and call heads or tails. If you call it right, your opponent's monsters on the field are destroyed. If you call it wrong, your own monsters on the field are destroyed, and you lose life points equal to half the attack of destroyed monsters. This card can only be used during your turn, once per turn. So, Time Wizard is one of the best gamble cards in the game, I think. Not for the reason you might expect, but because it's a card that can win you the game by itself. If your opponent has winning the board, and you're out of monsters, you can play this card, and then either you destroy all their monsters and you get the board back, or you lose 250 life and then you lose the game anyway. This is a card with so few potential options. Either you lose your board or they lose their board. You can play this card and you can make like contingency plans based on either result. And for that reason, this card's actually playable. It's the Regeki that isn't one, but it might kill your board. But if it's only Time Wizard, it works out. It's actually a really good card. I'm not gonna line. You don't play this everywhere, and there's scenarios where you don't want to use this card if you have board advantage, or if you just have a board in general, and you and your opponent have equal boards. It's just not a card that you play in that scenario. But otherwise, I think this is almost like a one-of in every Classic deck, even, just because of the potential. Yeah, great card for that reason. Most people won't play it because they look at a gamble effect and they think, oh, no, I can't do that. But a coin flip effect has so few scenarios that can occur that you can kind of plan for either one and use the card as a result. So, yeah, very good card. Definitely a draftable card in Limited. Almost playable today, even. If you're playing a card like Time Wizard, you're probably not very good, but it can work out. Soggy the Dark Clown, Dark, level 3, Spellcaster, 600, 1500. 1500 is enough that it can kind of block a lot of things in Limited. Like most of the monsters, I was saying, most of the monsters have 1500 attack. So it can stop a lot of them. But otherwise, it's just too weak for Classic. Prevent Rat in the I think it's in LOB. Prevent Rat has 2000 defense, so it blocks way more. And there's like a bunch of 2000 defense blockers in Classic in general, so this card just strictly worse than all of them. It is dark though, and it's the most flavorful target for Crush Card Virus. But otherwise, it's just not good. It is a Classic card though, by all means. Dragon Piper, level 3. Fire Pyro, 200, 1800. Flip, destroys Dragon Capture Jar, and turns all face-up Dragon-type monsters to attack position. The effect is usually irrelevant. In Classic, you can side Dragon Capture Jar against Dragon decks. It is a legitimate thing. However, running a card specifically in a Dragon deck to get rid of that card is kind of dumb. You just play 3 MS2 and 3 Dust Tornado and Heavy Storm. The stat line is actually good, though. It's very good for Limited. Not for Classic, though, because, again, I was saying there's a lot of chump blockers with 2,000 defense. So 1,800 is not good enough. But this card is, I think, playable, actually, in Limited. So it's good for that. Illusionist Faceless Mage. Still my favorite card ever. Level 5 Dark Spellcaster, 1,200, 2,200. It's a big butt for level 5 in Limited. But again, as I was saying, tributing to set a monster is just a really bad play. It's the most telegraphed thing you can do in Yu-Gi-Oh! So yeah, not really good for that reason. You could draft it in Limited, and it's not the worst thing. Not playable in Classic. Sangan. Oh my god. Level 3 Dark Fiend, 1,600. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, move one monster with an attack of 1,500 or less from your deck to your hand. Your deck is then shuffled. One of the best cards in Classic. There are so many cards you can search with this. You can search Exodia parts. Usually in Classic format, Sangan isn't one, because if you have 3 of them, you just play Exodia. It's still very strong, though. This is pretty much a one-of in every deck ever, actually. This is still banned in Modern, I believe. OCG, it was unbanned, and they eroded it heavily. So it's, even though it's actually still kind of a weak card, even if it was just the original version, it's too slow anymore. You can synchro with it, but I don't even think the timing doesn't always work on that, so it's just bad. For Modern, at least. It's an amazing card. In Classic, you play this in every deck. You always play this in Limited as well. Grey Moth we already talked about. It's not worth the investment. Kuribo. Dutulala. Dark, level 1 Fiend, 300, 200. Discard this card from your hand to make the damage inflicted to your life points by one of your monsters 0. The effect can only be used during your opponent's battle phase, so you prevent damage from an attack. It doesn't affect board. You -1 to do nothing to the board. It's kind of weak for that reason. There's a lot of synergy cards with Kuribo, but Kuribo himself I don't think is very playable. It's not the worst thing to draft in Limited. You don't play it in Classic, really, ever. Jellyfish. Level 4 Aqua Water, 1,200, 1,500. As I've said, in Limited, 1,500 is a serviceable defense line. Otherwise, it's a weak card. Certainly not playable in Classic. Castle of Dark Illusions. Oh, what a card. Dark, level 4, 920 attack, 1930 defense. Oh, hit the table there. So, this was part of a very small line of monsters that had uneven attack values, because most attack values in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are either 100s or not, like, there's like a 50 in it. This is one of those weird ones where it's not even. Not a card that's really fascinating. Well, it is kind of fascinating, but the point of this card... Oh, I didn't even read the effect. I was on a tangent. Flip, all zombie monsters gain 200 attack and defense during each of your next 4 standby phases. Each of these zombie monsters gains 200 more attack and defense. These effects last as long as this card is face up on the field. So, actually, zombie decks could be legitimate during Classic, because there were a lot of them. There was Pharaonic Guardian Sport, and you can play Castle of Dark Illusion, which is a large body, 1930. So 1900 attack monsters, you take 30 damage, and anything below that's not going to be able to get over it. And it's a significant buff, potentially up to 1,000. So yeah, it's actually like, you can pretty much make a zombie deck work in Classic, I think. I've never tried it, but it could work. And this is very good in limited because it's such a large. It's a very large body for a defender. I think it's the largest body in Metal Raiders in general because I don't think there's any 2000 blockers that are level 4. King of Yamamakai. Yamimakai? I don't know. Level 5, Dark Fiend, 2015-30. Actually a decent level 5. I think possibly the best in this set because it runs over any of the jump level 5s from before, like Battle Steer and Small Battle Guard. Yeah, definitely draftable, definitely playable in limited. Classic, it's too weak. There's a lot of better level 5s. Catapult Turtle. Good thing Gaia the Dragon Champion isn't in this set. Level 5, Aqua Water, 1000, 2000. Offer one monster on your side of the field as a tribute to inflict damage equal to half the tribute monster's attack to your opponent's life points. Monsters used for a tribute summon or that are offered as tributes due to other cards' effects are excluded. People used to think if you tributed for a monster, you could tribute it at the same time to use this effect, and that was not a thing. Slow card. It's not really worth it to do this. There are OTKs involving this card because Mass Driver is banned. This is actually technically stronger than Mass Driver because most monsters will do more than 400. Mass Driver only does 400, but this is a level 5 monster that you don't want to have to get out for an FTK, so not really good in Classic or Modern. Cannon Soldier is usually better. As far as limited goes, it's a big body for 5 stars, but otherwise not really good. It's draftable over a lot of other things in this set. Mystic Horseman, level 4, Earth Beast, 1300, 1550. Decent to set. You use it to make this, which is a very decent fusion. Level 6, 2000 attack, 1700 defense, Battle Lock, plus Mystic Horseman. Both of those monsters are decent and have similar synergies. This is actually a legitimate fusion monster. In limited, classic, it's just meh. You never really use this except if you're trying to be cool. Crass Clown. Level 4, Dark Fiend, 1350, 1400. When this card is changed from defense position to attack position, return one monster on your opponent's side of the field to the owner's hand. Very slow effect. You basically have to hope you can set it, hope they don't kill it, and then flip it, and then bounce the monster. Same thing as Dream Clown, but inversed. Serviceable and limited, not really playable in any other format though. Dark Fiends are good almost strictly because there's so much Fiend support in Classic, but that's about all it has going for it. Pumpkin, the King of Ghost. Level 6 Dark Zombie, 1800, 2000. If Castle of Dark Illusions is face up on the field, increase the attack and defense of this card by 100 points. As long as this Castle of Dark Illusion remains face up on the field, the attack and defense of this card continues to increase by 100 points during each of your standby phases. The effect continues until your fourth turn after the effect is activated. This is one of the most unfortunate synergies because it just doesn't really work. I guess he lives in the castle. I don't know. Point is, because they put a cap on the increase. It dumbed it down. Could have been really cool, but no, it didn't. It's not really good. Problem is, like, well, I mean, you probably would play this in a Castle Dark Illusions deck in Classic. Limited, it's a decent body, and Castle is in the same set as this, so you can play them together in Limited. It's actually kind of alright for Classic and Limited. Not very good, though. It's very slow. The increase is minimal. Modern, of course, not playable. Flavorful card. Dream Clown, level 3, Earth Warrior, 1200, 900. When this card is changed from attack position to defense position, select and destroy one monster on your opponent's side of the field. It doesn't really work. 1200 is just going to die immediately. The effect is powerful, but I mean, it's very slow to go. It takes like 2 turns just to kill one thing, so you'd rather just play a higher quality card stat-wise. Tainted Wisdom, we come to the best card in the set, of course. Level 3 Dark Fiend, 1250, 800. When this card is changed from attack position to defense position, shuffle your own deck. The amazing thing about this card is there is no synergy with this in the set. There's nothing that top decks anything. This card does just nothing. This card may as well read as a vanilla monster. It is actually used as fusion material for a very strong fusion monster in the set, so it's actually serviceable for that reason. 1250 gets over anything with 1200, and there is a lot of stuff with 1200, so it almost works, but it works. You fuse it with Ancient Brain, you get Skull Knight, who's actually really strong. Ancient Brain, level 3 star, Fiend, 1700, very weak normal monster, cool art. Kind of thing you find in a bargain bin, but he's a classic, but yeah, the stats are just so weak. You fuse it with this, you get a good monster. Guardian of the Labyrinth, level 4 Earth Warrior, 1000 attack, 1200 defense. Warrior is probably the best typing in Classic, but still not very good. Nobody ever used this card. There's just better Warrior monsters for the synergy, and the stats are too weak for Limited. Though it's not the worst card you can draft in Limited. Prevent Red is in this set. Okay. Earth, level 4, Beast, 500, 2000. Big wall. I don't think there was any other 2000. Oh no, there was Mystical Elf as well. And Giant Soldier of Stone. 2000 defense walls are almost always usable in Classic because nothing can get over them. And they just sit there and you can't really kill them. It's cool. This card's very good in Limited because there's no basic monster that can get over this. Some level 5 monsters that can't get over this. So it's good for that reason. It's only good as a passive card. It will never advance your board presence, but it will help you maintain it and stem any early bleeding. Definitely draftable. Classic. There's a lot of cards do the same thing. Giant Soldier Stone's almost strictly better. The Little Swordsman of Isle, I don't know. Warrior, water, 800, 1300. For one monster on your side of the field, distribute to increase this monster's attack by 700 points till the end of the turn. You can do that multiple times. I think that works with Scapegoat. I can't remember if Scapegoat tokens can't be tributed or they can't be tributed for a tribute summon. If you can tribute for Scapegoat tokens, this becomes like, what, 3700, 3800? 7 times... It's 3500, so... I mean, there's that. If you really want to... Or 3600, rather. No, it doesn't matter. You can't even get big for that. It's almost like that's almost a deck, actually. Or you could just play Injection Fairy Lily. That's kind of better. This card isn't good otherwise, though. I'm just kind of rambling about how you abuse that effect. Princess of Tsurugi. Welcome to one of the first burn cards that was legitimate. Wind, level 3 Warrior, 900, 700. Flip, inflicts 500 points of direct damage to your opponent's life points for each magic and trap card your opponent has on the field. This card was made in a time where people just set everything. They didn't care. They would set. They had equip cards. They had dark holes. They had Regekis, and they would just set them. Nobody ever thought that, hey, I should just hold these. They would just set everything. Tsurugi would kill them for like 2,000 points, which was half your life points back then. This card's playable and limited because it's a chump blocker that's strictly better than every other chump blocker that isn't just better statted. It's better than even better statted ones that are on Prevent Wrap because those won't really do much. Sometimes it'll do a bunch of damage. Sometimes it'll win you the game. Very good chump blocker. This doesn't really work in Classic because unless people are playing a lot of back row, in which case it's actually pretty punishing. Modern, of course, not playable. Flip effects are too slow for Modern. Protector of the Throne. Level 4 Earth Warrior, 800, 1500. As I said with Soggy the Dark Clown, 1500 defense is okay as a chump blocker in Limited. Not playable in Classic, though. Tremendous Fire. Magic inflicts 500 points of direct damage to your opponent's life points and 500 points of direct damage to your life points. So they lose a fourth of their life points. You lose 12%, I guess, of your total life. No, not 12%. You lose, like, I don't know how much you lose. Point is, it's a lot of damage to take. Back then, when there was only 4,000 life points to start, Yeah, every burn deck played 3 of these, and you would hope they didn't like run over you. Yeah, alright card for that. Playable in limited even, just to try to end the game. There are better burn cards in Modern, but I mean you could use it in your burn deck if you want to be cool. Jirai Gomo, really interesting card. Earth, level 4, 2200, 100. When you attack with this card, toss a coin and call it. If you call it right, attack normally. If you call it wrong, reduce your life points by half before attacking. Jirai Gomo is a card that makes you ask yourself, do I care about life points? And sometimes the answer is no. If you can draft this card, you can just attack and just go, just go ham. Don't care about your life. Just attack with this guy. 2200 is huge. That's one of the highest attack values in this set. Give this a buff card, you get over Summon Skull with this thing. This is a really strong card stat-wise. 100 defense doesn't matter, unless they block attack, in which case you're going to cry, but this card has so much potential in Limited, even Classic. If you want to build a huge aggro deck with like Gene Warped Werewolves is GX, so actually you can't even run that. This is so huge. Yeah, this card's potentially really good. Whether or not you draft it in Limited is very much dependent on how you play the game. I mean, sometimes you'll never you'll never get tails, or if you'll never call it wrong, rather. So sometimes it'll be really good. Sometimes it'll reduce you twice, and you just hope you don't get healed by a burn card. Really, really cool card. I'm of the. I mean, there's two schools of thought for a card like this. One being that life points don't matter enough if you don't lose the game. And if you use this card to push your advantage hard enough, you'll never lose because it's so huge. And there's a school of thought that thinks that life points are too valuable, and you put yourself in a vulnerable position if you have them like that. I'm of the first one. I think this card is just so strong stat-wise that it is absolutely draftable. Draft as many of these as you can. It can get really crazy. Just hope they don't drop Tremendous Fire. But I think the chances of winning with this card are better than the chances of them drafting and then drawing Tremendous Fire to kill you. So yeah, I think it's a very strong card. If you're of the school of thought that thinks that life points are too valuable, though, that's completely understandable. Don't draft the card. Just don't cry when I run you over with it. Modern, it's not playable. I think it's playable in Classic even if you think it's worth it. Shadow Ghoul. Level 5, Dark Zombie, 1600 attack, 1300 defense. Increase the attack of this monster by 100 points for each monster in your own graveyard. So in order for this card to be good, you have to have at least 4 monsters, so it's a level 5 2000. In order to compete with Summon Skull, you need 10. You need 10 cards for it to kill Summon Skull. You need I think 1500. You need 15 for it to kill Blue Eyes. You have to ask yourself how many monsters is your deck going to mill. And the answer is usually sometimes enough to where this becomes relevant, but sometimes it's just really bad. You can play it with all the floater monsters in Spell Ruler, and then like play this, and it'll have like 2700 or something. This is sometimes really insane. Sometimes it's really meh. I think it's draftable and limited because the game's going to go on long enough. This could get really big. As far as Classic goes, it's usually not going to be good, except for that floater deck I mentioned, which I might do a deck profile of at some point. And then Modern, of course, it's terrible. Even in decks that can build like even if you can build your entire deck in Modern, this still sucks. That's only 100 points per card. Labyrinth Tank, level 7, Dark Machine, 24/24. Gigatuk Wolf plus Cannon Soldier. 2 decent cards. This is I think 1200. Not great, but serviceable. 1200, 400, 1400. Cannon Soldiers are decent cards. 1200, and we'll talk about it more when we get to it. The point is, the fusion materials are decent cards. The stats on this are very good. Very good in Limited, not really played in Classic. Modern, not usable. Great Limited card. You can build your deck around it, I guess, in Limited construction, and it wouldn't be bad. Ryukushin Powered. I think the strongest level 4 in the set, aside from Jirai Gomo. Dark level 4, 16, 1200. Fiends. Fiends are very good, especially when they're dark. Yeah, strong as far as the set goes. 1600 gets over A lot of stuff. This card can swing a game in your favor, potentially in limited. As far as classic goes, it's kind of weak though. I mean, it's below the curve. You can play it in a fiend deck, and it's great. Not great, it's good. Bakuri box. Level 7, Dark Fiend, 23, 2000. Fusion of the two clowns, Crashing a Dream. Would you want to play both those cards? It's statted fine. It's better than a lot of the previous fusion monsters we've gone over. Gets over a lot of things. Gets over Yugioh. Yeah, very strong card. In limited, not in classic. Don't get the wrong ideas. Yeah, by all means, do this in limited. Not in classic, though. Guilty of the Dark Knight. Guardian Labyrinth, Protector of the Throne. I forgot both of those cards were fusion materials. Light, 1850, 1500. Very cool art. I love the art on this guy. Materials are both mediocre cards. You could play this in limited, but I don't know why you would. There's just better fusion monsters. If you want to do it for flavor, I understand. And the warrior typing's alright. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's fine in limited. Don't play it in classic. Warrior typing is not worth a card like this, even in classic. Launcher Spider. Level 7 Fire Machine. 2200, 2500. Very big stats. 2500 means Summon Skull can't kill it. Being a machine, it is subject to all machine buffs, and there are a ton of them. This card works for that reason. You can certainly play this card. In limited. Classic, it's still a little slow for the machine deck, but you could try it if you want to be cool and be like Bandit Keith. Gigatech Wolf, we kind of went over already. Serviceable stats. Machine makes him kind of good. Good even in a machine deck, and you can fuse him into this very good fusion monster in limited. Thunder Dragon. Level 5 Light Thunder, 1600, 1500. Discard this card from your hand to the graveyard to add up 2 Thunder Dragon cards from your deck to your hand. Your deck is then shuffled. This effect is activated only during a main phase. I wonder if they'll make like new Thunder Dragon cards that are like targets for this. This card, you draw it, you discard it, you get 2 more Thunder Dragons. They're level 5, 1600s, so they're not really particularly special. Is Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon in this set? Yes, it is. So this is one of the cheesiest fusion things you can do in limited, and even classic. It's big enough you can do this in classic. To where if you have this in poly, you have a Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, which is a 2800 fusion monster that can hurt a lot. This card, it's a cool card for that reason. People play this in Exodia as well because it pretty much means you have, like, you play the deck, you almost play the game with 1 fewer cards, essentially. Because you discard it and then you search the other one. And so then there's like, you automatically grab the card. So it works for that, otherwise not particularly special. You don't draft one of these and construct in limited. But for the fusion lane, it's actually legitimate in classic and even limited. Something called Fish. Water Fish, 1800, 800, level 4. Very big attack for limited. Even for construct, even for classic, it's actually legitimate. Yeah, you can run, like as I said, water's very good typing. With I can't remember the field spell. There's a field spell for water monsters that gives them plus 500. This is the 2300 beater with that card, which makes it really valuable for that. A great card in limited, passable card in classic, even good, and then not modern. The Immortal of Thunder. Flip. You gain 3,000 life points. After this card is flipped, you lose 5,000 life points when it is sent from the field to the graveyard. Light, level 4, 1500, 1300. This card should have been fusion material on Kaminari attack. Strange card. So if you're at full life, you gain 3,000. I'll put you at 7,000. Then it dies. You go down to 2,000. This card could straight up kill you if you lose 5,000 at the wrong time. Is it worth it? I don't know. Like, can you return it to your hand somehow? Is it worth doing that for? I don't know. Point is, it's an awkward card. The stats are alright, so sometimes it just won't die. You never know. Sometimes it'll just survive, which usually won't happen, but it's cool. Not really play. I guess you could play it in limited if you want to be dangerous, but not good in classic, and definitely not modern, even with like air homages. Punished Eagle, level 6, Winged Beast. 2100, 1800, Blue Wind Crown plus Niwatori. I think those are both in this set. Yeah, 1600, 1200, level 4. Decent overall, above not that. It's above average, I guess. Niwatori, I think, is LB. No, there he is. Level 3, 900, 400, very below average. Extremely below average, rather. It's alright as far as fusions go. They're better. It's actually probably better than Roaring Ocean Snake because Blue Wind Crown is actually a quality card in limited. It's alright in limited, not good in classic. Insect Soldiers of the Sky. Wind Insect, level 3, 1800. The attack of this monster increases by 1000 points whenever it attacks a wind monster. That is permanent, so if it attacks a wind monster, it's just forever 2000 attack. If your opponent plays a wind monster early on and you get this off, it becomes insane. Otherwise, it's very weak. It's almost worth drafting. You just hold until they play a wind monster, and then you just run it over immediately. Otherwise, it's bad. I wouldn't play it in classic either. You could play it in your side deck certainly. There are better parts of side deck, but it is great against wind stuff. It worked against Harpy Lady Sisters, which had it had that going for it. Yeah, it's a good side deck card because it's a level 3 2000 attack monster in most scenarios. You know, actually, I'm not sure if this is permanent. I kind of want to look that up, but I don't want to. I'm going to pause the video to do that. So I can't actually find out if this card works that way. I think it might just be when it attacks a wind monster, because it does say whenever, so that implies only during that battle. It's like when it attacks wind monster, it gains 1000. But it is kind of ambiguous. I am curious now. It might be less good as a side deck card if that's the case, but it's still, I think, like passable for side deck. Not good for your main deck though. Not really even good for the Insect Claws. Hoshinagen. This is part of a subset of monsters. Level 2, light, 500, 700. As long as this card remains face up on the field, increase the attack of all light monsters by 500 points and decrease the attack of all dark monsters by 400 points. And a light deck, it's legit. It's really good. You just face full the board with this card. It's actually these line of monsters. This line of monsters is actually pretty decent. Musician Cane, light, level 5, 1750, 1500, Witch of the Black Forest plus Lady of Faith. Two decent cards to fuse with. Witch of the Black Forest we'll talk about. Lady of Faith is an 1100 attack vanilla monster. Pretty weak, but with this card, with the synergy on this, with fusing, it's actually alright. Kind of a weird two things to fuse to make this. I don't understand that. Are they groupies? Maybe. I don't know. And one of the best arts, of course, and one of the best just principles for a card. Yeah, it's alright in limited, I guess. I forgot. Hoshinagen's okay in limited if you drafted enough light monsters. And that you can, if in limited constructed, you can make a light deck with this. It's actually playable in classic if you have a light themed deck. Yadokaru, Aqua, Water, 900, 1700. When this card is changed from defense position to attack position, you can place any number of cards from your hand at the bottom of your deck in any order. This is any order you desire. I'm sorry. This is one of the most useless cards ever. It works as a wall. And it's optional, so you can play it as just a vanilla monster, but like the effect is just so useful. It's like, why would you want to do this? Why would you want to do this? I don't understand. Yeah, the effect is terrible. Body's good though. 1700 defense is legitimate. Play it for that, not for anything else. Oh, this is an instant fusion target, by the way. As is Yugioh. I forgot to mention that. I realized that when I saw Cybersaurus and remembered that it's used a lot in Cyber Dragon. Level 5, Earth, 1800, 1400. Machine Fusion, Blast Juggler, plus 2-headed King Rex. 2-headed King Rex was tournament pack only, I think, at this time, so nobody used that card, simply because nobody had 2-headed King Rex. Because those cards were hard to get. And Blast Juggler nobody wanted to use. It's a weak fusion anyway, no one was really missing out. Cannon Soldier. Level 4, Dark Machine, 1400, 1300. Machine. Offer one monster inside of the field as a tribute to inflict 500 points of direct damage to your opponent's life points. And then there's the tribute clause after that. This card remains good today. There's still FTKs involving this with stuff like Cobalt Hedgehog. This card was used back then. You could just eke out a win with it. Use it with Scapegoat, do 2000 damage. Good in you play three of these in Machine deck too, because sometimes you'll get like a base swing, and you just tribute away your board. It can tribute itself, so you can potentially do 2500 on a full board. Very good card. Still a good card today in FTKs. It's actually a card you can throw into a lot of decks in Classic, and it just works. Muka Muka. Earth, level 2, Rock, 600, 300. Increase the attack and defense of this card by 300 points for every card in your hand. How many cards does this in your hand does this need to be good? It needs to be at least 1500 to be passable, which means three cards. How many cards before it gets crazy? It's about 6, in which case it'll be 2500. That's the cap it can get to. Getting it to that point is kind of difficult. Yeah, it's you really can't make this work. There's not enough draw cards and draw engines in the game to make Muka Muka powerful. People will try though, and it'll be cool, but it won't work. You can play with infinite cards, I guess, then its attack could be infinite. Well, it's actually restricted to 80. I wonder how big this could get. I'm kind of curious. Hold on. So I did some research, and the max attack this has is about, I think, 34,700 if you have infinite cards and then every other card in your deck in your hand. Nobody cares, but I thought it was kind of cool. But yeah, you don't play this card otherwise. It just doesn't work out. The Bistro Butcher. This was designed to be one of the first cards with a downside. Dark, level 4, Fiend, 1800, 1000. When this card inflicts damage to your opponent must draw 2 cards from his or her deck. This has also been used in deck out strategies to make your opponent run out of cards. And you do that by just making them draw through their deck. This card is notable because it's a big body for Metal Raiders, one of the biggest level 4 bodies in there. And so essentially you can play this and just try to just beat them down before the cards they draw matter. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Draws matter, yet they kind of don't. You can almost look at it as, if you can kill them fast enough, the cards won't matter. And I'm talking only about limited, of course. You don't need to play this in Classic. There's better fiends than this. And of course, in Modern, people try to use this in deck-out decks, but it's just too slow. They need to draw more than just 2 cards. Playable in, I think, limited, though, if you can kill them fast enough to use it. Otherwise, it's just kind of there. Starboy, this is the best out of the entire line of level 2 mass buff cards. Water level 2, 550, 500. It buffs all water monsters by 500 and debuffs fire monsters by 400. I think I said that right. Yeah, water is one of the best supported attributes in Classic, so this is a natural fit for that deck. As far as limited goes, in draft it only works with other water monsters, so it's kind of meh. Milus Radiant. Level 1, 300, 250. Same effect as Starboy and Hoshinogen, except it buffs Earth monsters, but debuffs Wind monsters. Again, it's alright. You can play it in an Earth deck, but otherwise it's kind of pointless. Flame Cerberus. Level 6. Fire Pyro, 2100, 1800. It's alright for level 6. Summon Skull is strictly better. Unless you're playing this in a fire or pyro deck of some sort in Classic. In Limited, it's a fair draft as a common. Newatori, nothing to really see here. Earthwing Beast, very weak. Used to fuse up. I think this one. So I guess it has that going for it. Dark Elf, level 4, Dark Spellcaster, 2000 attack, 800 defense. And it can't attack unless you pay 1,000 life points. Now keep in mind, at the time this card was around, you only had 4,000 life points to start. It's similar to... Oh, that neck is effed up, man. Look at that shit. Yeah, this card is... Jiraigomo works because it doesn't... there's no point at which you can't lose life points anymore from its effect. You'll just keep having it. This card, if you're at like a low life total, you just can't use it. That being said, I think this is playable and limited because it can just sit there, potentially. It works in Classic too because you can play cards that offset the costs, I think. So it's alright. It's just, it is a significant cost though in Classic. Modern, there's plenty of other cards with that attack value, so it doesn't matter. Mushroom Man number 2. Oh, this card design. Earth level 3, 1250, 800 warrior. A player controlling this monster loses 300 points during each of his or her standby phases when this card is face up on the field. Control of this card is shifted to your opponent by paying 500 life points at your own end phase. So if you have the hot potato, you lose 300. But you can pay 500 to make your opponent have the hot potato and then lose 300. This card is hilariously bad, and it's also hilarious. If it was inverted, I guess, like, theoretically it works. I was playing a game and somebody, like, did this and gave it to me, and I just use it as a synchro material. Like, it just doesn't work in Modern. Even in Classic, you distribute it, or you just beat their face with it. Like, it's just... taking 500 or 300 is fine. You get a monster. Like, I don't care. It's pretty bad. It looks kind of like a dick too, so it has that. Witch of the Black Forest, counterpart to Sangan. I don't know. I think I like Sangan more. Level 4, Dark Spellcaster, 1100, 1200. Same effect as Sangan, but it adds a monster with a defense of 1500 or less. That greatly increases the pool of monsters. Generally, it'll get a stronger monster like Summoned Skull. Very strong card. You play it in pretty much every deck in Classic, and certainly in Limited. Little Chimera. This is the small buff card, but for fire. Buffs all fire monsters, debuffs all water monsters. You play it in a fire deck. That's about the extent. Bladefly is the same thing. I think it debuffs earth monsters. Yes, it increases wind, decreases earth. There you go. It's an insect, so it has an extra synergy. Lady of Faith, just 1100, 800 light spellcaster. You fuse it from Musician Cane. Otherwise, has no use. It's pretty weak. Twin-headed Thunder Dragon. Level 7. Light Thunder Fusion of 2 Thunder Dragons, 2800, 2100. This is the Chump Fusion of Metal Raiders. You pitch Thunder Dragon for 2 more Thunder Dragons. You play Poly. You get this 2800 beat stick that very few other things in the set can get over. Nothing, actually. I think this is the strongest card in the set. I don't want to scroll up to look, but point is, it's very strong. Constructed decks, pretty much any constructed deck in Classic with fusions can just throw in 3 Thunder Dragons and then discard, and you have like a very easy to summon fusion card. It's a very worthwhile card in Classic and definitely in Limited. In Modern, of course, it does nothing, so it's not really played, but it's cool. Witch's Apprentice, the final group buffer, increases dark, decreases light. Dark's the most plentiful attribute, so it has that going for it. Blue Winged Crown, we already kind of talked about it. Level 4, Wind, Wing Beast, 1600, 1200. Fusion for a passable card. 1600 is already above par, so it's alright. Skull Knight, level 8, 7. Dark Spellcaster Fusion, 2650, 2250. Fusion of Tainted Wisdom and Ancient Brain. 2 low quality cards fused to make this very high quality card that gets over Summoned Skull. Alright for that reason. Playable and Limited, probably not in Classic though, because there are better fusion monsters to make. Gazelle, super short print. 1500. Oh, this is a really small picture. Level 4, Earth Beast, 1500, 1200. Passable card in Limited. You can fuse it for that one Chimera thing, though that's actually not technically in Classic. So, I mean, there's that going against it. Garnicia Elephantis, level 7 Earth Beast Warrior, 2400, 2000. Very, very cute card. Let me open it. 2 tributes for 2400 isn't very good. There's a lot of bigger cards with that many tributes. But it's has good flavor. Playable and limited, not really in Classic though. Barrel Dragon, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Earth level 7 machine, toss a coin 3 times. If 2 out of 3 results are heads, destroy 1 monster opponent's side of the field. Its effects can only be activated once per turn during your turn. 2600, 2200. So I don't know what the exact percentage on this is. It's not 66%. But you have an all right chance of destroying a monster with this card for free. And then it has a good body. For 2 tributes, I think that's pretty worth it. Playable and limited. A little clunky for the machine deck of Classic, but you could still use it. And of course for Modern it's too slow. It's a very fun card. Most decks can throw this in Classic and it kind of works out. Solemn Judgment. Counter trap card. Pay half your life points when your opponent either activates a magic or trap card or summons a monster. To negate the action and destroy the trap card, magic card, or summon monster. Doesn't work on a monster effect. Very strong, very, very strong card. It's pay half your life points, not X amount of life points, which means it won't kill you. And there's never a scenario in which you can't use it, because you can always pay half your life points. Even if you're like 50 life points, you just pay half that. So, very good for that reason. It stops anything except for a monster effect, and at this point in the game, monster effects don't matter. So, it stops anything essentially. Yeah, it's crazy. This card is banned today for a reason. Modern obviously be very good; everyone would play it, but it's banned in Modern. So, as far as Classic and Limited go, yeah, you can play this in any deck. Really, there's really no reason not to run this card. Once per turn, once per game, you stop anything. Pretty sweet. I want to know the story about that dude, though. Magic Jammer. Counter trap card. Discard 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, as opposed to somewhere else, to negate the activation of a trap card and destroy it. You go -2 to stop 1 card. It's kind of underwhelming for that reason. There's no other cards that really stop magic cards at this point, though. So, yeah, you kind of need to use it. It works out fine. There's actually not many cards that negate spell cards that are better than this for a while, so this card's legitimate. You're better off just running good old Solemn Judgment, but you can play this card if you're really trying to stop magic cards. I keep switching between saying magic and spell because everything in this set is described as magic, but just keep in mind those terms are interchangeable if you didn't already know that. 7 Tools of the Bandit. Counter trap card. Pay 1,000 of your life points to negate the activation of a trap card and destroy it. This is better than Magic Jammer by far. Pay a quarter of your life points, stop a trap card. That's pretty strong. Sometimes they won't be playing like enough trap cards to hit with this, but it's still worth playing in Limited and Classic. Not many cards outclass this. Trap Jammer is not quite as good because it only stops cards in the battle phase. So yeah, this is certainly playable. As far as Modern, there are better cards that negate trap cards. Horn of Heaven. Offer one of your own monsters in the field as a tribute to negate summon, including special summon of a monster, and destroy it. So it's kind of like it's another 2-for-1 card, but you stop it immediately. You can tribute a chump monster to get rid of something. You can tribute a token to get rid of something. It's alright in any of the Classic formats. Certainly playable. Useless if you have no monsters, which kind of makes it a bit weak. As far as Modern goes, no one really uses this, though I think it's actually pretty usable in Modern, but whatever. Shield and Sword. For 1 turn, each face-up monster's original attack becomes their original defense and vice versa. Any additions to the attack and defense of a card due to card effects are applied to the new attack and defense. Monsters summoned after this card's activation are excluded. So you swap their attack and defense for 1 turn. You can play a bunch of 2,000 attack monsters and then suddenly make a huge swing unexpectedly. You can build a deck around it if you want. It's kind of awkward. And very telegraphed. Not a card I would honestly use. You build a deck around it, obviously. I'll just see there's a few scenarios. You can't really build this into any deck and have it like work well. So yeah, it's an alright card. Because there's some synergies with it, and there are some just inherent things that happen with it that kind of work out well. Probably play. I don't know if you'd ever want to draft this in limited and constructed. You can make a deck around it, but it's not that good as a deck. And modern, of course, doesn't do enough. Sword of Deep Seated. A monster equip spell card. A monster card equipped with this card increases its attack and defense by 500 points. When this card is sent to the graveyard, place it on top of your deck. Not always something you want to do, simply because you might be needing to draw another monster to equip to it, and then you just draw a Sword of Deep Seated. Actually, a decent equip spell for the time, though. If you're running a good enough monster ratio to where this won't screw you over. Yeah, it's alright. Playable and limited for sure. I don't know about classic. And modern, of course, it's not good enough. Block attack. Select one of your opponent's monsters and shift it to defense position. Like a bad removal card. Put something in a position where you can run over it. That's really the extent of it. Nothing special here. It's just block attack. It's playable and limited because it can put up a card in a position where you can kill it. As far as classic goes, there's better cards than this. There's cards that do that to the entire board that are just better. The Unhappy Maiden. When this card is destroyed, is sent to the graveyard as a result of battle. That battle phase for that turn ends immediately. Kind of a good stall card. If it's your only card, it's just a chump blocker that stalls the game out. There's not that many scenarios in limited where you need to stall the game out, so it's not really good for that reason. As far as limited goes, you could play, or classic rather, you could play it if you're trying to stall. There are better cards to stall it with, though. And you can't even send it with another effect to do its effect, so it's not that good. Robin Goblin. Each time one of your monsters inflicts damage to your opponent's life points, one card is randomly selected from your opponent's hand and discarded to the graveyard. So right off the bat, it's a continuous trap card, which means it's the worst kind of card in the game. Continuous trap cards are just the worst typing of cards. You have to set it first, and then it doesn't immediately do something when you flip it, and it can be stopped by any spell and trap removal card, so it has a lot going against it already. The effect is decent. It's useless if you can't damage your opponent. If you're in a position where you can't damage your opponent, if you're behind on board, this card is terrible. If you're ahead on board, it's great because it'll just cement your place on the board by removing their options. And as I said before, discarding a card in Classic is way better than Modern because they can't get the card back nearly as easily. This is kind of a card that's tough to call. And there's kind of like it's kind of like with Yugioh. Some people think it's great. Some people think it's trash. I think it's kind of trash. Not the worst card. There are worse cards in Metal Raiders by far. Play it at your own risk, I would say. As far as Classic goes, I still think it's too slow, even in a deck that's like designed around this. I think this card also has a strike against it in the fact that if they have no cards in their hand, it just does nothing. So there's also that. Germ Infection, equip spell. The attack of a non-machine type monster equipped with this card is decreased by 300 points at each of its standby phases. It's being its opponents. That's a terrible wording decision. In all on it, it's really slow. 300 is just not enough. It's even for old formats, it's just too slow. Can't do enough with it. It doesn't even decrease immediately. Paralyzing Potion. Equip spell. A non-machine type monster equipped with this card cannot attack. It doesn't really help the board at all. Like, you'll just put it on a monster you don't want to attack because, oh, it's a big scary thing. And then, oh, hey, you still can't get around to your opponent because it's still in the way. Paralyzing Potion is akin to a band-aid on a gaping wound. It doesn't really help you at all. It's just there. Some dude's gonna play like 3 of these and like a chump direct attacker deck, and then it's just gonna suck. Yeah, it's a bad card, I think. Mirror Force. I don't know what to say about this card that hasn't been said. It's a very strong trap card. When an opponent's monster attacks, negate the attack and destroy all opponent's monsters in attack position. Just immediate board reversal. Potentially get 2 for 1, 3 for 1, 4 for 1 sometimes. Even 5 for 1. Sometimes 1 for 1. The card's not even that bad if you just 1 for 1 with it. Yeah, overall, very, very strong card. No downside to this card at all. Yeah, by all means, playable in Limited and Classic. People don't play it today because stopping attacks isn't really that enough anymore. But yeah, in old format is certainly good. Great, even. Ring of Magnetism. A monster equipped with this card increases its attack and defense by 500 points. All your opponent's monsters must attack the monster equipped with this card. That doesn't mean they're forced to attack. It means they can only attack that card. You can put it on a card that can't be destroyed by battle, I guess, and then they can only attack it. That's kind of cool. Otherwise, it's very slow. It's just a very clunky card. There's no real synergies in Limited. Classic, you might be able to find a use for it, but overall, you're just better off playing a decent quality card. Equip cards are already a weak card type. Without having like a weak equip card, it's just really just weak. Share the Pain. Offer one monster on your side of the field as a tribute. Your opponent must select one monster on his or her side as a tribute and I'm trying to talk too fast. Your opponent must select one monster on his or her side of the field and offer it as a tribute. So you each tribute a monster, basically. I don't know. It's a 2 for 1 in most scenarios, unless Scapegoat, I guess. You tribute a Scapegoat token, they tribute their Blue Eye because it's the only monster they have. Playable and Limited for that reason. Sometimes they'll lose a quality card, you'll lose a bad card. Otherwise, it's pretty bad, I think. There are better cards that do the same thing. Like, I'd rather just play Tribute to the Doomed, or Offerings to the Doomed, or Tribute to the Doomed, Tribute to the Doomed, for that matter. So, not particularly good. The art looks like a Linkin Park album cover, though, so it has that going against it. Stim Pack. Not Fallout. Equip Spell. A monster equipped with this card increases its attack by 700 points. Its attack is then decreased by 200 points at each of its standby phases. Kind of a cool flavor effect. He comes off of the sugar high, I guess. So Axe of Despair wasn't until Magic Ruler, so this card kind of worked. I mean, if you're trying to get a fast win in, you can just put this on your monster. He's big now. He probably gets over most things, and just go for a quick game before it starts to wear on him and make him bad. Axe of Despair outclasses this. You can run both of them in a deck if you're really desperate, but this card is just not good enough. There's better cards that increase by an approximate amount. So, playable unlimited for sure, though. Heavy Storm. Magic card. Destroys all magic and trap cards on the field. Like with Mirror Force, there's not much about this card that it hasn't been said already. It's the spell and trap equivalent of Dark Hole. You destroy all the spells and traps, including your own. If you have none and your opponent has 4, this card is broken as hell. Usually it's pretty balanced, though. There's not that many. As far as Limited goes, there's not that many cards this is going to hit, so it's just a classic staple, really. If you're playing Classic, you're going to play this card. It's still banned in modern TCGs, so that's too bad. I don't think it's really warranted. Destroys control decks, of course, that play like Gravity Mind. And the last card, Thousand Dragon. Level 7 Wind Dragon, 2400 attack, 2000 defense. Time Wizard plus Baby Dragon. One of the better fusion monsters of the set. The card was pretty sweet to pull. Yeah, Time Wizard, as I said, is a quality card. Baby Dragon's below average. So the fusion materials are actually alright, cumulatively. And yeah, Thousand Dragon's certainly playable and Limited. I don't know about Classic. It's kind of weak. 2400 isn't that huge in Classic, but it is actually pretty playable, I would say. And just a dragon deck where you throw all this stuff in. It works, is what I'll say. And that brings us to the end. Thank you. If you, on the off chance you've watched this far, thank you for watching. This will be a new regular segment. We'll be going through every single set up to 5Ds, because once you hit 5Ds, there's nothing to talk about that's really that interesting. Because once you hit 5Ds, you hit archetypes, which are there's less to really analyze in archetypes. And I can say this is going to be by far the most boring episode of this segment. Future segments are going to have far more effect monsters to talk about, far more interesting things going on. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And this is Dual Personality, signing out.